was incredibly important to understanding the musical fit, the personality fit. Those musicians live and work very closely together.
They do.
And there needs to be a synergy.
And you know,
in that
they're
group.
making music together, which in a way they do every day, and they could take it casually. But it's interesting that making sweet music together has become a phrase that people use just for having a wonderful time together. And we should understand that, ideally anyway, that's what happens when you make music. And in fact, there has to be some kind of personal relationship. But on a different topic now, or maybe it's a related topic, one of the new things that's been going on, as I understand it, in recent years, is that you and others from musicians' unions are now working on projects with the American Symphony Orchestra League.
Yes, we are. And I understand that is a fairly recent development stateside.
Mm-hmm.
I sat on the Orchestras Canada board for 6 years when I was on the Canadian desk, and that was just a fact of life. That's the way things were always done there.
Maybe
so I came here with that experience.
And maybe that's because the orchestras are publicly funded to a much greater degree than here, and so there would be a public responsibility for them.
I think it goes deeper than that. There really is a cultural, a distinct cultural difference in terms of a cooperative spirit. The Canadians are famous for being peacekeepers and peacemakers.
Oh, and the Americans are cowboys. We know this. But it's not false. It's not false.
It is not false.
And we have the great spirit of free enterprise, which leads people in business to think they can do anything they want. And so now an orchestra is a kind of a business, and the musicians are the employees.
And there is a little bit more of an adversarial nature here.
Yeah.
Having said that, I've made no secret here on this side of the border of the fact that I think sooner or later we all need to, in some format or other, be in the boat together, trying to figure out where we're going with this. And I think that these projects are a wonderful way for us to start. The one that's moving forward the most quickly, I would say, is the Collaborative Data Project, which is all about figuring out what do we need to know, what questions do we need to answer, and what format do we need those numbers to be in so that we can analyze that
data. And these are
data.
numbers about orchestras.
Yes.
Numbers about number of ticket sales, budget numbers.
That's right. And also, we would love to have some environmental information context so that we know the size of the community and some indices of the level of capacity of that community to support an orchestra. So often what we go head-to-head over at the bargaining table is, are you doing as much as you could be?
Right.
In the bad old days, the musicians would be saying to managements, you could be doing more, you should double the budget, we should be earning much more money. And managements would be saying, oh, the community's maxed out, we can't raise any more money. But if there's no information...
If there's no information, how do you know if it's right?
How do you have that discussion?
Right.
Yes.
There are times, obviously, when the community is maxed out, and the musicians have to understand that there's not much further at the present time that you can go, that the money for things that seem reasonable, taken out of context, is just not there. But there are other times when management simply isn't doing its job.
And the only way I know that that's the case is through experience, where I have seen in probably half a dozen examples I could name from my Canadian experience, which is where I've spent most of my career, where leadership change has resulted in dramatic and profound organizational change over a very short period of time. There are some wonderful people who came into situations where we'd been told for years that there was just nothing more that could be done, and suddenly budgets were doubled and the seats were filled and there was an energy.
Now where, for example?
Oh, one of my favorites is Windsor, Ontario. It's a woman named Mina Grossman, and she loves music. You could tell working with her, she was a tough negotiator, tough manager, but I think that love of music and the love of her community inspired her when she took over an organization that was just on its last legs operationally and in every other respect, and she breathed new life into it. And interestingly enough, she started in the office. That was where the biggest breakdown was, and she needed to modernize it, she needed to staff up, and we were there explaining to the musicians that the rewards would flow from that if we would let her get her work done, and sure enough, they did. I negotiated several very favorable contracts there. It's a small orchestra, but it's a great success story.
I know, and we were talking about smaller orchestras before. Sometimes there are wonderful success stories. Now, I ran into, and you may well know more about this than I, somebody from the board of the Saginaw, Michigan Orchestra. She was sitting across from me on a plane. We got talking, and she told me how they had come back from the brink.
Well, tell me, I'm from Midland, which is just a half an hour away. I have family in Saginaw.
Look, I'm not an authority, so footnote here to everybody, double check what I say. This is one source. Basically, they reinvigorated the orchestra's relationship with the community. That was the key to it. And a big part of that, she said, was making the musicians visible in the community. So now, honestly, I don't know if I am making this up or if it's what she told me, but they would play in malls, for example. So if you went shopping, you would see, here's a little group of musicians who are from the orchestra. So suddenly the orchestra had a face out there.
One of the things that we have to do as a union is learn as much as we can about our institutions and about what it takes to run them. I have learned from observing managers that it's the ones that at the bargaining table are looking at their watches and looking over, the manager's looking over the board president and remembering that they have an appointment at City Hall and then they have dinner with a potential supporter. It's the ones that are not in their offices who are out in the community passionately advocating for their institution in a way that with such enthusiasm. So there's no apology about asking for money. There's no sense of cap in hand. There's this sense of we have something wonderful for you and we need your help. And I have to tell you, as formerly a negotiator and now the head of this department, I expect that in our managers. And the best thing that we can do is get on board with the other industry leaders in this country and make sure that we have wonderful leaders for our organizations.
A thing that really strikes me, Laura, is that you bring to your work in the union the kind of passion that I'm sure you brought to your playing when you were a violinist. And it strikes me, something we all know, that there is more to do in music than only playing, and that everybody involved in the picture is doing important work. And I think you are right here on video as a living embodiment of how engrossing, important, and fulfilling that work can be. And all of that, I think, without ever dropping your fundamental job, which is to be an advocate and representative of the musicians.
I appreciate that. I feel that that's exactly what I'm trying to do. We have a rich history, even in many of the AFM staff that have been working for decades and have done such wonderful work. And I learn from my own staff every day, and I grow and develop. But I also think that times are changing and we have to move forward, and that we need to find a way to work within our institutions and within the industry as a whole to move it all forward.
Which is, God knows, something that this entire industry is starting to think. So thank you very much.
Thank you.